We did everything manually, and seeing a product that could like elevate sales teams and say, wow, like this actually solves for a lot of like the manual tasks in the day to day, like hell yeah, who would not want to buy something like this? But I think what really makes me stick out is somebody that's doing the job before they get hired. It's, they're prospecting me. There's borderline of being professionally persistent and being really annoying. So like finding that middle ground, I think is really important for anybody that we're hiring. I feel like there's something about to be said about people that are really hungry, that like are really tenacious, want to get after it. You just feel the energy fill up the room, and that's really important to you as you're hiring too. I detest people that are not coachable, because there's always so much more to learn. I do feel like a lot of deals are being done over happy hours or dinners or coffee chats too. I remember when I interviewed with Orem, like I bombed my cold call. I was so bad, and Colin's like, "How did you think you did?" I was like, "I did so bad. I was so nervous."
It's really hard to tell. Like some of our best SDRs, it's just like, how would you ever think so? Like they didn't have the experience. Um, Sounded funny. Like, yeah, I didn't do that well on the mock cold call, but they're just killers. They're just really good.
Yeah, you're gonna learn by like failing forward is what I tell my reps. It's like you get on a bad call. What did you learn? Okay, great, good thing that you have somebody like that's gonna be next on that line within like 10 seconds. So you better learn quick. So if you don't take sales calls like as a salesperson, what are you doing? Um,
Welcome to Prospecting Pros. We have Eri on from Orem. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, you guys.
We also have Chris is joining us, my co-host, who will be part of the conversation. So what we're doing here is we typically discuss all things sales development, SDRs, appointment setting, and you being at Orem, you're the sales development manager. You have a ton of experience with this, so I'm excited to talk about how you go about things at Orem, all things SDRs, SDR related. So yeah, let's dive in. But I was looking at your LinkedIn before this call, and I saw you were at ZoomInfo before. So tell us a little bit about, even you can go back before that as well, but tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to Orem.
Yeah, so for me, I started off my SDR career at ZoomInfo. I started off as an inbound rep, worked my way to outbound, and then team lead and managed 6 different teams during my time there. So worked on our emerging products to customer space, SMB mid-market, and then worked on a DaaS project as well for about 4 months. And then I decided that, I had worked in customer, emerging, went through one acquisition with Chorus, but never worked the new business side. And as I was thinking about year 5, I was like, I should probably try to do something different to like make sure I'm a well-rounded leader. And Colin had actually reached out to me, was like, hey, your name was dropped to me like as a potential like SDR leader. Are you considering like a new role? And I actually wasn't. And Colin is very persuasive. If you know him, I think he can sell like ice to an Eskimo is what I say. Had a conversation, and one thing led to another, and I landed at Orem. And so I lead our entire sales development program, which has been really fun. It has been probably like the most challenging but the most rewarding time in my career. I've learned a lot and have scaled a team, and now they're performing and hitting. So that's what landed me at Orem. But it was honestly like the people and the product that drew my attention. Being a sales leader, we didn't have a auto dialer at ZoomInfo. We did everything manually, and seeing a product that could like elevate sales teams and say, wow, like this actually solves for a lot of like the manual tasks in the day to day, like hell yeah, who would not want to buy something like this? So if you know me, I won't work for a company unless I believe in the product. So that's kind of what landed me there.
Yeah, we love Orem. We've been using Orem for over 2 years now. Since we hired our first SDR all the way up to, I think we're approaching 40 now. There's roughly a little over 35. I lost track, and they're all on Orem, which is cool. And you've been managing the team for roughly a year. Tell us
Yeah.
about, how many SDRs do you have there? Tell us about what you're managing in your some of your day to day.
So right now I have about 6 reps. So we work on the commercial side and enterprise and strategic. So my reps are paired with account executives. They have accounts that they prospect together, but they're also using, our data provider to find outside accounts that they can also work. So for me, it's implementing the strategy of how do we leverage our tech stack most efficiently and create workflows and systems for our SDRs to use. I don't like build all of their lists out for them. Like we're a fully outbound shop. However, when I do think of a play, I work with our rev ops team and sales ops team to say, hey, like I'm planning on working like this intent list or website visitors that we might have missed or recent funding. And I want to get out these accounts with these specific prospects assign these to my reps, and I'll build out the talk tracks, the sequences from there. So it's building the strategy around our outbound motion, but then also coaching and enabling my reps as well. Because, you know, a lot of them want to become account executives. So it's like, how do I start building them to be AEs while they're in the SDR role? So I do a lot of that. And then I do all of our hiring for the SDR org as well. So I kind of work in different buckets with sales ops, hiring, my sales team, and the AEs directly. So in a nutshell, it's a lot of coaching, a lot of building, and then a lot of enablement for my team too.
When you're going for that hire of the rep, that they kind of go through your process, what are really the key differentiating factors for you guys? Like, this is going to be our person that we're going to submit the offer to.
I think this round was like the most difficult hiring round for me, to be honest. There was so much talent out there, and I've never just seen that level or caliber of talent. But I think what really makes me stick out is somebody that's doing the job before they get hired. It's, you know, they're prospecting me. They might be sending me an email. They might cold call me. They, you know, when they complete their application, they do it in full and really doing their research on me and what I care about and my team and what I'm building. I feel like I put a lot of golden nuggets out there of like what's important to me as a leader, my reps as well, but they also build champion sentiment. So they reach out to my SDRs and say, hey, like, I'm applying for the role. Like, what is your manager like? What do you like about Orem? Like, what does your day-to-day look like? And what was your experience through the hiring process? So they're building internal champions. And when I see that, I'm like, okay, if they're doing that to get a job, they're more than likely going to do that same effort when they're prospecting. And that's really important. Like, I say, it's so boring. Like, yes, I went to the University of Oregon. Like, please tell me more. Like, I already know I went there. Like, I really don't care if you put that in there. If you use AI to like send me an automated sequence or your first email to me, I can tell if it's AI. Like, no, I hope this email does not find me well. I'm not going to read it. So for me, it's a lot of what personalization, what effort are you putting in to actually get the job and go from there, but be professionally persistent and don't be annoying, because we all know like there's borderline of being professionally persistent and being really annoying. So like finding that middle ground, I think is really important for anybody that we're hiring. And also their energy. I feel like there's something about to be said about people that are really hungry, that like are really tenacious, want to get after it. You just feel the energy fill up the room, and that's really important to you as you're hiring too.
I feel like this is one of the roles just as being a sales development rep where you can literally show what you're going to do before you get hired, because you can actually show your creativity in going multi-channel. You can pick up the phone, dial or call the manager. It's like for us, when someone cold calls me, it's like, whoa, okay, so they're comfortable on the phone. It's like a great sign. Whereas I don't know, someone in HR or finance, it's like sometimes it's hard to tell, but like you can actually show you're going to be hunting and like do the work to get the job, and same thing to get the sale.
100%. And I think that's what separates like good or decent from great. And also just filling out the application in its entirety. Like I was so shocked the first day. I had probably 56 applicants within 9 minutes of me posting the role. And I would say probably more than 65% of them didn't complete the application.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah.
So if you don't,
We,
it's an automatic
Oh,
from me. And I go through every single application and every single video. So if you don't take the time to do this, you're probably not going to take the time to put like
the one that
daily.
I've
yeah.
seen that, and I'm just so not used to it, is you post a job posting out there, and it has all the clear details of what we do and what to expect with the job role, and they'll be like, "Hey, I'm interested in learning more." I'm like, okay.
Or versus like, what are the KPIs and quota? And it's like, if it's on the job posting, if your attention to detail isn't there, like I'm already kind of weary about like, did you actually like do your research and go from there too? So could definitely resonate with
For us, it's a requirement that you submit a video.
same.
Otherwise, when we say this in the application, like submit a video or we will not consider your application. But there's like some sites where you can just do like a one-click submit, like LinkedIn, for example, you can submit it. But if you read what it says like we put job posts in different spots, but like some people will be like, hey, I applied and never heard back. It's like, well, yeah, we didn't consider your application because it said that we weren't going to. It's like, yeah, it blows my mind.
Yeah, I get a lot of that. Hey, like, did you look at my application? No, you didn't post a video. I'll send you one right now. Sorry, like we're already like moving along with other candidates. You know, you have to do the small
Yeah.
things to get the deal done, and you have to do the small things to earn your spot on a team too.
Out of curiosity, how important is it that someone's actually done the job before you hire them? Like, do they have to have direct experience, or are there other traits that you're looking for that could potentially, be more important than actually having been on the phones in the past?
I think when you're thinking about the enterprise and strategic motion, I do like to have people with a little bit more experience, because when anybody that sells to enterprise or strategic accounts, it's a spider web to try to figure this out. And if you don't have experience, sometimes it can be a little bit more of a learning curve. Not to say it can't be done, because I have seen it done. It just takes a little bit longer. So if you have the ability to have that in your ramp time, for sure, like hire green and train really well, but you have to have an onboarding program built out for your commercial and strategic accounts, because you work those completely differently. So it doesn't matter to me if somebody has experience. It just depends if I'm hiring for a senior role for our strategic accounts or commercial. Like, being more green is totally fine. I don't think that it matters if you've really been on the phones. I've hired people that were actors, people that worked in the restaurant and hospitality side. My team lead was a former teacher, and now she's an account executive. So I think just showing that, hey, like, what I lack in skill, I can show you in work ethic and hard work, and I'm okay, being coached. But something I see is a lot of athletes transition very well into sales, or former teachers. I don't know what it is, but teachers are probably like, okay, you're telling me I have to go call 50 people instead of dealing with 30 kids. Breeze. I kind of like the sense of like gratefulness and gratitude to like be able to do something like this. And with athletes, like, I think they come in and they're naturally competitive. They want to be at the top of the leaderboard. They don't like to lose. And they also know that, like, making perfect practice and not just like practicing to practice, but like perfecting over a course of time really translates really well into sales, because they're always wanting to get better and better and better. It's not just about like game day and being your best at game day. It's like the actions that lead up to game day. But I think it's just like personality traits too. Like, if everybody was good at sales, everybody would probably be millionaires and everybody would do this. But I think it's like a specific like characteristics and traits that make people really good at sales. And it's just tenacity, grit, willingness to be coachable. I detest people that are not coachable, because there's always so much more to learn. And so I think that having those traits is really important, more than just like doing the role and having been in the role for a while.
Out of curiosity, like, what is the ratio that the SDRs are doing? Like, meaning between like social, email, cold calling? Are they heavy on the phones? I mean, you guys are a dialer after all. Like, I'm curious, what does that look like? How do they spread out their outreach?
I would say we're phone heavy. Like, that's a given. I would say 90% of our meetings do come from the phones. And then the other 10% are like predominantly like LinkedIn. Emails are not working, as we know, but like, it's great to introduce our product and introduce ourselves, keep it very simple, keep it personalized. So the first email will always be a very personalized email. And there it's just kind of like, hey, like bubbling this up, or hey, like, did you read my last email? But then once they get into the conversation, that's like where the magic really happens. And LinkedIn has been really effective too, because we're finding that people are just kind of like overwhelmed with emails, right? Like, there's so much going in our inbox and Slacks, but LinkedIn, it's like, oh, there's actually like a face to this person, or
Mhm.
they like to comment, and I'm going to go look at their page and see what they're about. And then when they message me, it's like, oh, I already kind of looked at your stuff. So phone and LinkedIn have been really helpful for us. Email, not
Mhm.
so much.
Yeah, we're finding the same. Um, okay, and then I have a question about cold calling, because we're always trying to figure this out. Is what tends to be the sweet spot of how many parallel dials to use? Do you
Oh
guys
god,
like fluctuate on this, or do you have like something internally you're like, yeah, just stick with this number?
I like 3 to 5. I think that makes sense. I think anything over 5 is a lot. It's a lot to manage at one time. So I would say 3 to 5. If I'm working a very specific list, like whether it's events or we know the ratio is going to be a higher pickup rate, I'm probably not going to parallel dial. I'm going to power dial through that
Mhm.
one. So it depends on what I'm prospecting and what my list is. But I think that like larger list, parallel dial 3 to 5. If you have a very specific list, like let's just power dial that one.
Yeah, that's what we tell clients too, is oftentimes they're coming in and never done this before. They don't even have an idea where to start. And I tell them, like, listen, if you like, just for the sake of the conversation, if you have a very niche total addressable market, maybe 1,000 accounts you can work with in your addressable market, it doesn't make sense to pump out 5 parallel dials every single day. But if you
Yeah.
have an addressable market that's 50,000 accounts and more, then yeah, I mean, you're never going to put a dent in that market without doing parallel dialing. So it's really a strategy based.
100%. And I would look at your list too, like what are the pickup rates? What are the conversion rates of those? And if you're finding that you're converting at a higher rate in some of these accounts, maybe slow it down a little bit because we could be missing some like fruit there. So it all varies. I think data is really important to take a look at.
Well, that actually leads me to a good question for you too, is what is a good connection rate?
Good connection rate. I mean, I would say like the industry right now says like you want your connection rate to be between like 5 to 7% is what people are saying, right? But I
Mhm.
also think that depends on your data and your CRM because as much as we say the industry standard could be like that 5 to 7% is what we want, if you have bad data or your CRM is like not up to date, it's really
Mhm.
going to affect that regardless of what you're doing if you're not cleaning things up and enriching. So I like to say 5 to 7, but like connect to conversation. Like my team's up in the 25% sometimes, if not higher than that. But I also feel like we do a really good job of being like really focused and
Mhm.
not like dialing to dial. We dial with intention and we know who we're calling and why we're calling. So that can affect your rates. But if you're just doing these big list pulls from things and you're calling through them, you're going to see probably a lower connect rate because you might not have enriched that data or your CRM's
Yeah.
up to date. So all of that can really affect that too.
Who's kind of y'all's data provider of choice, if you can say anything about that?
Oh boy. We did go with 𝐮𝐸info.
Okay.
We had Apollo for our reps, and it just 𝐮𝐸info just had more data for us in terms of like international because we are working international too. So that was. But I know people have different experiences, and I think it just depends on the industry as well. Like for us, it's like, do you have a pulse? Great, great. So like we have a little bit of a different market that we can really tap into.
This episode is sponsored by Level Up Leads, a B2B sales development and appointment setting agency. Companies always need pipeline, but they oftentimes don't want to hire SDRs internally. The whole process is risky and expensive. You've got hiring costs, onboarding, training, additional spend on your tech stack, a few months to ramp up. And with that being said, SDRs are a high turnover position, and the person you hire might not necessarily work out, so you need to start all over again. That's why companies outsource this. Level Up Leads allocates a team of people, their tech stack, so you can onboard and launch your campaigns in about a week. They set qualified meetings in your calendar so your team has more selling opportunities. Visit levelupleads.io today to learn more. All right, now back to the show.
Yeah, and we're using 𝐿_ZoomInfo too. And honestly, I like the team over at 𝐿_ZoomInfo. I like the platform. I think it's clean, but we use multiple data providers. Truthfully, I think 𝐿_ZoomInfo is my favorite right now.
My SDRs use 𝐮𝐸info, or A's are using a different one. And then I know we kept some Apollo seats for like our ops team to do bigger list pulls. So people are moving from a single vendor approach to a multi-vendor approach too.
Yeah.
You just have to these days. It's so
Mhm.
hard to just have one that just solves all problems, especially if you're going into multiple industries. It's just impossible. Like we pay for like five or maybe more. Like I don't even. It's hard to say.
Start to
And some of
losing
them,
count.
yeah, yeah, exactly. It's hard. And then we have backups too. Like, and then if we can't figure that out, then we'll go to Clay, and then it like opens up a whole nother box of other opportunities. It's different because we have so many different clients across so many different industries. I wish one data provider could solve that, but it just doesn't.
It's like I said, I think it depends on your market, your like ICP as well, because 𝐮𝐸info is built for sales, so they have like more sales titles in there too. But they might not be great for like the financial industry. You don't know, so
Mhm.
I wouldn't know just because I don't really work those markets there.
One thing I'll say is I can't necessarily say this is 100% 𝐿𝐿ZoomInfo, but we have been seeing increases in our dial to connect rates. So we've historically, like last year, we were at 5%, and this year we're at a little over 7%. And so,
Mhm.
like some of the adjustments we've made in the data is like it's trending in the right direction, which is great to see. 𝐿𝐿ZoomInfo is new for us this year, so that's great. I can't say it's all them, but with some of the adjustments we're making, it's a really positive sign.
Yeah, and people will say, "Oh my gosh, like even though we're making all these dials, like we're not having connect rates." And the first thing I say is like, "When's the last time you cleaned up your CRM? Like when's the last time you actually like enriched some of your data?" Data's
Mhm.
good, but it does go bad, and so you have to stay up to date.
Yeah,
Who cares?
data attrition's real. Because it's what, like anywhere from like 5-10% of the market's constantly moving. And then
Yeah,
if you don't update that information, I mean, you're just throwing darts into the darkness, essentially.
The other thing I was going to say when we were talking about the different industries is that actually industries and title makes a huge difference in those connect rates or numbers that you'll see with cold calling. Like it varies drastically. We'll have some that are just down below in like the 3%, and we'll have others like even close to 15% on average, and the pickups are so high. Really, it does vary.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like I have a rep who came from Beacon Hill and she works staffing. She's like our staffing queen. And the pickup rates when she's targeting staffing agencies is so much higher because like they're used to
Mhm.
being on the phones and picking up calls from, potential people that they want to work with. So like we've identified, wow, like our pickup rates are really great in staffing. So it just kind of varies by the industry too.
What are you guys seeing at Orem as kind of your most successful channel right now? Yeah, I would assume it's probably going to be calling because we're seeing the similar. But are you having more luck with conversions going to conferences, or is it pretty much everything's over the phone is the biggest success for you at the moment?
Yeah, I would say it's kind of a combination of both. Definitely the phone, but also when we go to events, I think that we present ourselves very well and we're very friendly. So people are like, "Oh, I remember those people from Orem," and like they reached back out. I talked to your sales director, I talked to 𝐟𝐨𝐫𝐞 or one of my SDRs at the events, and events have been very fruitful for us. Just getting in front of people that have never really heard of Orem, or if outreach is there, looking at them and saying, "Oh, like who's over at the outreach booth that we can talk to?" And so that's been really great because I do feel like a lot of deals are being done over happy hours or dinners or coffee chats too. So it's a combination of both for us, whether it's in-person events and then making sure that if you are at an in-person event, like we're not here to just have a good time, we're here to work. So like making sure you're scanning people and following up, the pre and post event follow-up is really important, giving them a call or LinkedIn message. And then, obviously calling people too.
Yeah, conferences work really well. Pre-conference, during the conference, post-conference. We haven't attended much ourselves. Chris and I have talked about it, but for our clients, it's always a huge win. It always works out really well compared to cold. It's pretty obvious as to why, but it's just nice to see that. And also make the most of the event. Like they're not cheap to go to. And so if you're actually setting up meetings and getting follow-ups from it, like a lot of companies don't set up good processes around attending the event. So this just gets the most bang for their buck when they do go to these events.
Yeah, and making sure that sales and marketing is aligned. Like, okay, what does our pre-event outreach look like? What is our post-event outreach? Are they in sequences? Okay, are we calling? What's our call to action? What's our objective? If you have a really good sales and marketing motion, believe it or not, sales and marketing can get along. I love my marketing team. You can make magic happen. But when there's a disconnect in goals and what you're trying to accomplish, I think that's where people are like, "Oh, events don't work." Well, talk to me about your process. What was the plan? What was the strategy going into this? And if you just expect to give your reps a list and say, "Hey, call these people, they might be attending this event," like that's not fruitful. Give them some talk tracks, give them a call to action and something to follow up on, and actually be actionable. And then you're going to find that you're going to be really successful at these events.
So there's a lot of talk online about SDRs, whether or not they work. We clearly think they do. You guys have SDRs, so I can assume you guys do as well. But talk to the audience. Why are SDRs working? Why are they important to have in an organization?
I think the biggest thing is like your sellers should be focused on selling. Like at the end of the day, they have revenue targets to hit, right? So if they're distracted by other competing priorities, whether it's like doing fully outbound, we have our SMB team is like a full cycle rep, but they were former SDRs, and like that gets their feet wet, gets them building, their pipeline, and then they become really good at ease and they go to commercial, right? But I think that SDRs are really important because whatever the AE is busy doing, they can focus on those things, and then the SDR can book these meetings, work in partnership. We've noticed that when AEs and SDRs work together, like the conversion rates are a lot better because we're actually targeting very specific accounts. But then also you're getting your SDRs involved in the pilot process. Like they're kind of building up user sentiment. Like we're actually leveraging SDRs more differently. Like if you're using your SDRs just to call, that's fine. But if you have the ability to get them into pilots and, kind of be like the end user, like person, you're going to get sentiment up and you're going to start closing more deals because they're going to remember, "Oh, I worked with Chelsea, but my SDRs actually worked with Colby on this pilot, and he was like their person and did cold call blocks with them too." So I think it's more than just a body that's calling, and you need to leverage them because a lot of these SDRs are hungry to grow and learn, that you have to build something for them to look forward to. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Like just giving somebody a list to call through is not going to work. Like you have to have a strategic strategy in motion to make sure that you're actually using your SDRs for their full capability.
One question I forgot to ask, I want to go back just a little bit, but it was on my mind and I forgot to ask. But I'm curious, when you are hiring SDRs and they're going through the interview process, Do you do mock calls with them?
We do, yes. So
You do.
I
Okay.
pitch, meet Orem, and then our third step in our interview process is actually doing role plays with my team lead. And then Colin, you never know, he might throw you a cold call mock role play in your interview process. So we definitely are all about that. But I think it's really important when people are doing the mock call, like how coachable are you too during that? Sometimes, if you're
Hmm.
going to one, I remember when I interviewed with Orem, like I bombed my cold call. I was so bad. And Colin's like, how did you think you did? I was like, I did so bad. I was so nervous. And I was like, what feedback do you have for me? Because I have some really harsh feedback for myself. So I think just being coachable during those like role plays is really important too.
Yeah. We used to not do that, and we started implementing it, and it's been huge for us, like just to weed out who's going to be good and who's going to be bad, because it's already hard enough to get a good SDR, right? It's not an easy job, especially if you're on the phones all day, and it's a really challenging. I've made plenty of mistakes oh yeah, this person's going to be solid, and I was wrong, and then vice versa. It's really hard to tell. Like some of our best SDRs, it's just like, how would you ever think so? Like they didn't have the experience. Um, Sounded funny. Like, yeah, I didn't do that well on the mock cold call, but they're just killers. They're just really good. But yeah, anyways, since we started implementing that, it's been huge in terms of being able to just like feel out how they sound on a cold call rather than just in a casual conversation.
I agree. Like, there's nothing more like boring than when you get somebody they're like, "Hey, this is John from X company." It's like, have some enthusiasm. Like, do you like your job? It doesn't seem like you do. So you can kind of tell with those role plays, like tonality and talk to listen ratio and all of those things
Mhm.
too. John, like you said, if you do a video, you're like, "Oh wow, these people sound great," and then you get into a conversation with them and they're interrupting you every second, and it's like, "Oh, if I was a prospect, this would really irk me." So definitely can resonate with that there.
I do have a question too in terms of like companies that are looking to build out their first SDR program or make their first SDR hires, and the technology that comes with that they need to do is, what would be your recommendation to these companies if they should even go out and hire SDRs? What does that kind of look like just from your perspective, from being at ZoomInfo and now at Forum? So you see all the different companies that come through.
If you don't have a successful onboarding program, good luck. I would say anybody that's looking to hire their first SDR or like just build out that motion is go do the job yourself and figure out where where the holes are and where you're having challenges. Because if you're having those challenges, it's your SDR is probably going to have those challenges too. So building an onboarding program that has like a buddy, that has peer-to-peer learning, that has videos, that has like modules that they can go through, I think is really important, because you could hire a really talented person, but if you don't give them the tools and resources to succeed, it doesn't matter. And if your onboarding program isn't built to support a successful, rep coming in and being able to do the job, you're just throwing money out the window at that case. I think it's very important to build a really good onboarding program, because, even people that I've interviewed are like, I just got thrown in. They're like, here's your tools, here's your tech stack, like go do the job. And then they're like, I had no idea how to build a list. I didn't know how to do this, but there wasn't a training or enablement for that. They just threw this at me. So I think build a successful onboarding program, because you can always adjust that and then you can always
Mhm.
scale, but you can't really like build a house without the foundation.
Well, that leads me to another question. Now I just keep getting more questions that come to mind. Is, when you're going through a training as an SDR, right? How long would you say till you cut them loose and you say, okay, you did great, you graduated, you're on your own now? Is where do you kind of define that? Do you have a time limit? Like you have a 3-month ramp and you're in that training, or once you hit a certain benchmark, we let you go?
Our ramp time right now is between 30 to 60 days. So it's really great. Like the first month is learning kind of the team, the structure, the flow. And then in month two, like they're like in that flow state, which is really effective. So I would say by month two, like we have a 3-month ramp quota just to make sure that like they're very supported and have everything that they need. And then once they're, in the next quarter, they're a fully ramped rep. So I would say it's probably like that 30 to 60 day window. But we have our reps start calling week 2.
Week 2.
Yeah.
Well, we do too. Yeah, that's typically because this is a unique position where actually training is on the phones,
Yes.
right? It's like you can go through videos and all sorts of scripts, but if you're not actually talking and doing it, like you're never gonna really build that muscle. So
Yeah, you're gonna learn by like failing forward is what I tell my reps. It's like you get on a bad call, what did you learn? Okay, great. Good thing that you have somebody like that's gonna be next on that line within like 10 seconds. Like you better learn quick. So yeah, it's probably the most unique job where you learn by doing the most.
And there's a lot of talk too about what is the best cold call opener
Mhm.
or script. Is there anything you can share on what like frameworks or anything you guys try to stick to or follow, or how are you training your SDRs?
I think really for us, permission based openers have been really, really successful because you can't always assume that people have time. But I think it's also disarming to say, hey, John, like, this is 𝐿 from Orem. Do you have 30 seconds to, take my call and hear what, what I have to say? And people will usually be like, sure. Like if you're in sales, like you're going to give somebody the opportunity to, right? And go from there. Hopefully you do. If you don't take sales calls, like as a salesperson, what are you doing? And then I think it just is very disarming in a sense too. I think that has been probably the most effective opener for us that we've seen. And until it changes, then we'll change it up. But I really like the permission based opener. But what about you guys?
Combination. I'd say we mix it up. Actually, we do use a permission based, but it just because of we're not just targeting one persona for one company, literally everything you could think of from all shapes and sizes. So we will mix it up. Permission based opener is part of it, but a lot of it we try to teach is tone. How you say the permission based opener can be completely different or be received differently. So like that's part of it as well. As we'll try to teach tone. Chris, what have you seen?
Honestly, I think it just for us, it's less probably about the permission-based opener and just the intro tonality to that call, which makes or breaks a good rep, at least in the calls that I listen to. But I think overall, if I had to pick one just to bet on, I would do a permission-based opener just because I think it's the most respectful across the board. But we've seen some success too with kind of the downward inflection, like, how are you? Or how have you been? And I know Gong released their whole study on that, like, oh, it actually converts better, but it's I think it purely comes down to the individual SDR and just how they operate.
100%. I think tone is super important. I remember when I was an SDR making dials, and something that somebody told me that always stuck with me was like, 𝐿, you sound like too much like a girl, like on the phone. Like you're very high, like high energy, high pitched. And I looked at them and I was like, well, I don't know how many meetings you have on the board, but I have 3 and you have 0. So clearly
So
what I'm doing is
that's a quick trip to HR right there.
Yeah, yeah.
I will never forget. I called this guy and he was like driving his daughter to, like, this was probably one of my favorite calls. He was driving his daughter to ASU. Like, he was dropping her off at college. And I was like, hey, like, how's it going? Like, and he's like, who is this? And I was like, yeah, this is 𝐿 from 𝐸𝐿. And he's like, hey, you actually caught me at a bad time. I'm driving my daughter like to ASU. And I was like, oh, awesome. Like, I went to Northern Arizona University. I was like, well, let me just tell you really quick why I'm calling, and then you can get me off the phone. And he's like, yeah, sounds great. Like, I am interested, but like, let's have a chat like after I come back. So called him back. And I was like, hey, I forget his name, probably like John or something. I was like, hey, John, like, how's dropping off your daughter at school? Like, how did it go? Like, did you end up going to this restaurant I sent you? And everybody's looking around you like, do you even know this person? Like, you're talking to them like friend.
Yeah,
And I told my manager, like, oh, hey, like that's how you book a meeting. Like, having like that tone and that energy and like remembering a
yeah.
little bit about them like really
It
works.
it
Because
really
monotone people,
it's like the offer you want to get in and out, but connecting with people too, especially on that second call. I mean, that's just a
totally.
sales thing. You have to connect with people no matter what you're selling. If you can't connect with people, it's going to be an exercise in futility.
Just sound like you. I think that's the biggest thing is like what makes you unique. Like sound like yourself. Take talk tracks from other. Don't be afraid to be you on the phones because there's a million SDRs, but there's only one of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, some of the other things we'll say is to our reps is we'll be like, you sound like you're reading a script. Like just relax a little bit. Like be yourself. It's okay. It doesn't you don't have to follow it word for word. But because it can come across as if you're reading it word for word. And so I wanted to wrap this up. 𝐿, thanks for coming on. We're big fans of Orem. Keep up the good work over there. I see you guys on LinkedIn all the time. Where's the best place for people to find you?
Yeah, I would say LinkedIn for sure.
Okay. So I'll put your link to your LinkedIn in the description. And that's it. I appreciate you dropping some knowledge. It's really cool to have someone actually at a dialer and training SDRs. So a lot of crossover with what we're
Yeah.
doing. So thanks
Good
for coming on.
conversation. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
being customers. And Chris, I'll see about getting one of these hats for you that you mentioned.
Yes,
Let me
please.
see what
I
I
want
can
one of
do.
those. Any swag, send it my way.
You got it.